there's a lot of tension that is still out there in the world of sports as it pertains to off the court and off the field related issues. And partly that's because sports media have decided that they need to cover sports like it is politics. In other words, there's not any difference at all. The line of demarcation between sports and politics is virtually zero now. They're one and the same. And so on Sunday, I was coaching Little League Baseball. And by the way, our Little League Baseball team is it's a real work in progress. I mean, I've got 9 and 10-year-olds that I'm coaching, and I don't know, the range between what could happen and what does happen on any given pitch is seismic. I mean, we could get a home run, or we could have, in terms of batting, or on defense, we could obviously get a strikeout, or on defense, I mean, we had a couple of times over the weekend where we had ground balls to shortstop that went through the shortstop's legs, went through the left fielder's legs, and rolled all the way to the fence. Second baseman, same way, right fielder, all the way. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen on any given play. And so I am at Little League Baseball. I had games on Saturday and Sunday. That's what I spent most of my free time on. And a bunch of you out there in the Outkick army blow up my phone because there is a feature story from Adrian Wojnarowski on ESPN, on the main ESPN.com website. It's the top story on the website and on the app. And so I don't see it for a while. I get home, and I'm catching up on all my emails and all the direct messages and everything else, just scrolling through, checking to see what the news is. And ESPN has published a story about the fact that the NBA is basically preparing for the league to shut down, depending on what the verdict is in the Derek Chauvin case up in Minnesota. So this is an Adrian Wojnarowski piece saying, hey, you know, depending on what the verdict is, if the jury doesn't find him guilty, then the NBA is just not going to play. I mean, that's basically the crux of the Adrian Wojnarowski story. And in that story, they report that the NBA previously had stopped playing and sports had shut down after Jacob Blake, an unarmed black man, was shot by police in Wisconsin. And that's a lie. Jacob Blake was armed with a knife. Police had been called because there was a warrant outstanding for his arrest. Purportedly, the police were called by the woman who was the victim of Jacob Blake's assault before, and he was at her house, would not leave, and she was seeking police protection. Police arrived. They told Jacob Blake to drop the weapon. He refused to drop the weapon, fought with them, and finally, the police officer fired at Jacob Blake. There were no charges that were filed because he was armed with a knife and because he was reaching into his car, and the fear was that he was going to get another weapon there. That's why the police officer fired. That's why no charges were brought. So ESPN, in this big Adrian Wojnarowski piece, they report that Jacob Blake was shot and he was unarmed. It's 100% a lie. It is up as the lead story on ESPN for 4 hours. This comes on the heel of Mark Jones, who is one of the NBA announcers, reporting during a Lakers-Bucks game that Jacob Blake was unarmed and he was shot as well. This is a lie. So I put my Outkick reporters on this story, and I say, hey, and I tweet out about it. And I say, hey, you should reach out to ESPN and ask, do they have a comment on why their entire editorial process has failed, and they are reporting inaccurately that Jacob Blake was unarmed when he was shot by police, when Jacob Blake himself admits that he was armed with a knife. And oh, by the way, when the police were called because Jacob Blake was threatening a woman who had previously reported crimes committed by Jacob Blake against her. It's kind of an important details of this story. ESPN doesn't issue any comment at all Initially, they changed the Wojnarowski article, and then finally, hours later, they put in a correction acknowledging that they got it all wrong after the vast majority of people have already watched it. People might say, why do you care about this? I care because there is an intent to use sports to divide us all. That's what's going on. People out there who want to create the narrative that police are all awful and that white people and black people and Asian people and Hispanic people cannot get along. They are trying aggressively to divide us. And they are using sports, which used to be a major point of unification, as a way to try and divide us. And when you are reporting 100% lies, which is what ESPN was doing for hours all day, and if a site like Outkick and this radio show and the company that I own didn't exist, they would have never corrected the lies that they are spreading. They didn't correct the lies that Mark Jones was spreading on their television network. And if we hadn't reached out to draw attention to this, they would have continued to spread lies. And there are lots of people out there who still think, oh, Jacob Blake was 100% innocent. He did nothing wrong. Jacob Blake was armed, refusing to comply with police officer instructions, and the police were called to protect a woman who Jacob Blake had been accused of committing crimes against. That's the real story. That's a significant story. And last year, when the NBA shut down, they ended up shutting down for a falsehood, for a story they believed which was not true, and the NBA and ESPN and all of the quote-unquote woke universe out there in the world of sports are continuing to spread lies. I'm not telling you all my opinions are going to be right. Not going to ever tell you that. I'm going to get lots of things wrong, like you get things wrong, but I do believe it's important to get facts correct. Because if you disagree with my opinion, that's fine, but you can't end up in a situation where facts don't exist and aren't treated in a responsible fashion. And one reason why this show has exploded in popularity is because so many of you know deep down to your core that there is a lot of BS out there and that sports is being used as a conduit to peddle it. And that whether you agree or disagree with my opinions, I'm going to get my facts right for you every single day. ESPN doesn't. They should be ashamed of what they put up on their website as their lead story. They failed and they lied, and you can't trust them, period.